Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're jumping right into a totally overlooked truth about our finances. We're going to uncover why mastering money is actually way less about complex math, spreadsheets, or technical formulas, and far more about human behavior and psychology. If you've ever wondered why financial success sometimes seems completely disconnected from raw intelligence, well, you're in the exact right place.
So why do incredibly smart people often go broke? It's a massive paradox, right? We all just kind of assume that a high IQ, a fancy degree, or a killer job automatically equals financial success. But the data shows us that simply isn't true. High intelligence does not make you immune to financial disaster, mostly because money is heavily driven by our emotional blind spots. It's really about how you behave, not just what you know.
Take pop star Rihanna, for example. Back in 2009, she nearly went bankrupt, losing a staggering 82% of her wealth in just one single year. She actually ended up suing her financial advisor for gross mismanagement. And his response in court? It was brutal, but incredibly honest. He basically asked if it was really necessary to tell her that if you spend money on things, you'll end up with the things and not the money. It perfectly hits on the dangerous trap so many of us fall into. The desire to look wealthy completely overshadows the unglamorous reality of actually being wealthy. Because wealth is literally the money you don't spend.
Today, we're breaking this phenomenon down. We'll trace a path right from the invisible flaws in human psychology all the way to the concrete, long-term mechanics of building wealth. We'll hit 6 key areas: the psychology of wealth, overcoming your financial emotions, buying assets, not liabilities, the magic of compounding, creating a margin for error, and finally, the ultimate wealth is time.
Let's kick things off with Part 1, the psychology of wealth. To get a grip on our bank accounts, we have to look at how our foundational beliefs shape our financial reality. Author Robert Kiyosaki paints this brilliant contrast between a traditional, security-focused, poor dad mindset and an ownership-driven, rich dad mindset. Notice how one aims to climb the corporate ladder while the other wants to literally own the company. One avoids risk out of fear, and the other manages and tries to understand risk. It's just a totally different lens for viewing the world.
But here's the kicker. Having the right mindset to acquire wealth is only half the battle. Financial writer Morgan Housel makes an amazing point that getting rich and staying rich require entirely opposite skill sets. Getting wealthy takes bold optimism. You got to take big swings. But staying wealthy? That takes the exact opposite. It demands caution, frugality, and honestly, a healthy dose of paranoia.
Which brings us right to Part 2, overcoming your financial emotions. Because even when we know the right moves on paper, our own brains love to sabotage us. Kiyosaki points out these specific mental roadblocks that literally paralyze us. For instance, the fear of failure makes us play it way too safe. Or there's the fear of ostracism, worrying about what the neighbors will think if you don't buy a shiny new car. And what about laziness disguised as busyness? We constantly say we're too busy at work to actually sit down and review our investments. These emotions keep us trapped in this endless cycle of working for money instead of having money work for us.
So, how do we beat those emotions? Well, Housel introduces a framework that I think is a real game changer: rational versus reasonable. Listen, you shouldn't try to be coldly rational. For example, a Yale study showed that if you use leverage, basically borrowing money to double your stock investments, you could mathematically increase your retirement by 90%. That is entirely rational on a spreadsheet. But when the market crashes and you lose everything, human emotion kicks in and you're going to panic and quit. No normal person can stomach that. Instead, you need to be reasonable. You have to pick a financial strategy you can actually maintain emotionally when things get tough.
Okay, so Part 3, buying assets, not liabilities. Now that our mindset is sorted, let's look at the actual mechanics of what we buy. Kiyosaki distills wealth building down to one incredibly simple rule. Rich people acquire assets, which put money into your pocket, and everyone else acquires liabilities that take money out of your pocket, all while mistakenly thinking they're buying assets. And this leads to a pretty shocking realization for a lot of folks. Your massive house might actually be a liability. A bigger, more expensive house acts like a giant vacuum. It sucks up your cash with high monthly mortgage payments, property taxes, maintenance, you name it. That is cash flowing out of your pocket every single month, money that absolutely could have been invested profitably somewhere else.
Think of it this way, and this is absolutely crucial. Every single dollar you have is an employee, and that employee can work 24 hours a day tirelessly to make you more money.
Every dollar you spend on a liability today, like an expensive car, is basically an employee you just fired. It's a dollar that can never work for you again.
When those little employees are actually put into true assets, we unlock something incredible. Part 4. The magic of compounding.
This is the most counterintuitive force in finance, and it actually works exactly like an ice age. For the longest time, scientists couldn't figure out what caused massive ice ages. Then meteorologist Vladimir Kupan figured it out. It wasn't brutally cold winters. It was actually slightly colder summers. A cool summer meant a tiny layer of winter snow survived. The next year, that leftover snow reflected sunlight, cooling the Earth just a bit more, allowing even more snow to survive. This tiny advantage compounded over thousands of years into ice sheets miles thick. In investing, it's the same thing. You don't need massive, impossible returns. You just need average returns left alone to compound over long periods of time.
To prove just how wildly effective this is, consider Warren Buffett. He's arguably the greatest investor of all time, right? Well, here is the absolute craziest secret to his wealth. Over 97% of his massive fortune was accumulated after his 65th birthday. Just let that sink in for a second. His secret isn't just picking the perfect stocks, it's the sheer, crazy length of his investing timeline. He let that financial snowpack build into an absolute glacier.
But to let compounding do its thing, you have to survive long enough. Part 5. Creating a margin for error.
In the financial world, your success is almost certainly going to come from tail events. Basically, these are the super rare, massive outlier successes that drive the vast majority of your returns. Because of this, you have to cast a really wide net. You have to humbly accept that a huge chunk of your investments will actually fail or just break even.
Look at the hard data from the venture capital world. It backs this up perfectly. Roughly 65% of startups actually lose money. Another 32% break even or give a tiny return. Practically all the massive returns come from just the top 3% of companies. This means you have to build enough of a safety net to absorb the 65% of your decisions that are going to fail, just so you can stick around long enough to catch that incredible 3%.
You always have to plan for the unpredictable. Let's look at World War II for a second. There was a unit of 104 elite, heavily armored German tanks sitting in reserve outside Stalingrad. When they were finally called into action, only 20 actually worked. Why? Because during their idle weeks, tiny field mice had crawled inside and chewed through the electrical wiring. Seriously, no engineer on Earth plans for a 20-gram mouse to take out a 25-ton steel war machine. Freak events happen all the time. That is exactly why having cash savings and a margin of error is completely non-negotiable. Which leads us to our final point, Part 6. The ultimate wealth is time.
If we acquire assets, let them compound, and build that margin of error, what's the actual endgame here? Well, it's about staying ahead of the incredible escalation of competition we face today. In the 1920s, you only competed against the people in your town. By the 70s, it was national. Today, the entire world is your competition. Having a cushion of savings provides you with the ultimate advantage, flexibility. It literally buys you the time to wait for the absolute best opportunities in your career and your investments.
Ultimately, the absolute highest dividend money pays is control over your time. Back in 1981, there was this landmark psychology study by Angus Campbell that looked at what actually makes human beings happy. The results were wild. True happiness wasn't correlated with income level, geography, or education. The highest common denominator for happiness was simply the feeling that you are in total control of your own daily schedule. Just waking up and saying, I can do whatever I want today.
So that brings us to a final, incredibly important question. The next time you're about to make a big financial decision, I want you to ask yourself, are you buying a liability just to look rich to other people, or are you securing an asset that ultimately buys back your life? Master your psychology, let your assets compound, and use your wealth to buy the ultimate luxury, which is your freedom. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.